Today in my workshop, I'm working on a spot welding system for 18650 lithium-ion cells. I also in this video will test whether aluminum foil can be used as a substitute for nickel-plated wire, which most of the internet uses to solder lithium-ion cells together. For my first test, I'm going to use this defective 18650 from a laptop battery that I salvaged. The bag of batteries you see behind are the effective ones that I was able to salvage, and the small pile beside that are all defective ones that I can use for practice with spot welding. First here I'm clipping some AC wires from a vacuum cleaner. I'm twisting both pairs of wire inside each cable together to make it twice as thick. This will give it higher current capacity. I'm connecting them to the battery using the screw terminals on the battery itself. This is a battery from a car jump starter that I salvaged. I restored it from 0.5 volts up to the 12 volts that it should be running at. Its current capabilities are somewhat limited compared to what it might have once done, but because it has one cell it's a little bit shorted. Now I'm going to create on my bandsaw a wooden wire holder to hold the electrodes in place that I'm going to use to spot weld. I'm going to drill some holes in it now. Now I'll tape the wires to it. This will just make it easier to get the correct distance between my spot welding connections. Again, I'm just duct taping this together. It doesn't have to be particularly pretty, this is just a test. I've also twisted some nails on the ends of the wires, though I realized later on that these nails would limit the conductivity of the wire and thus would slow down my spot welding capabilities. Now I'm removing these cables from the battery and I'm going to try some thicker gauge wire. Here I am testing that, and this works a little bit better, but again it doesn't have quite the power that I'm looking for. This could be because the restored battery doesn't have the same current delivery capacity it used to. After restoration, one of the cells is slightly shorted, and because of that, it can't provide the same amount of current. So now I'm setting up a microwave transformer. I hope that this will be able to provide more current than the car battery could. I'm going to hook up the same cables that I used for the last setup, except this time I'm going to hook them up to the secondary coil of this transformer. This used to be a microwave transformer. I pulled out the secondary coil, which used to have 1,000 windings, and replaced it with a 3-winding, very high gauge wire that I took from jumper cables. This provides 3 volts on the output. 3 volts on the output means close to 600 amps on the output, which should be more than enough for the spot welding I want to do. Now I'm hooking up the vacuum cleaner cables and the nails on the end of them, but I've replaced the nails now with some copper wire, hoping that that will decrease the resistance of the whole setup and allow it to deliver more current. I've also made a slightly different setup to connect my electrodes together. Now I'm setting up the aluminum, and I'm finding that the aluminum doesn't want to spot weld the 18650. One of the things I realized later on was that the spot welder has to touch part of the cell cap and part of the strip that you're trying to spot weld to it. This is because the current has to flow from one through to the other in order to weld them. Now I'm trying some nickel strip, which I had much better luck with. But even that, I had a lot of trouble spot welding still, because I'm still using vacuum cables between spot welding joint and the transformer. When a huge inrush current flows through the vacuum cables, they quickly heat up, their resistance increases, and thus limits the current. So later on, I'll have to switch to higher gauge wire when I realize that this is the problem. Here I am removing the cables entirely and just attaching the electrodes straight to the ends of the 3-gauge transformer wire. I've also created a new setup to hold the 2 electrodes. And I'm going to give it another test. And this is the setup that I was able to be successful spot welding the nickel wire to the 18650 cell. You can see the little sparks and a little bit of smoke come out, and that's a really good sign. In the end, I was able to accomplish a couple of minor spot welds. There's lots more to improve on in the future, and I hope to release a full project video once I've figured that out. Thanks for watching.